I'm speaking to Anne-Marie Martin, Chief Executive of COPCO, and we're going to talk about Brexit. Anne-Marie, do you know what Brexit means? Because that's what the Prime Minister is saying.
If we're alluding to Brexit means Brexit, well, I suppose that's definitely the case. So I think the message is coming over very loud and clear that the people have decided and we will go ahead with leaving the European Union. I think the uncertainty is much more around how that happens than whether it's going to happen.
And where do you think the government is going right now?
It's really difficult to tell because there's a lot of mixed messaging. I think from the general discussions, it's really difficult to tell whether we're going for a soft Brexit, as it's being named at the moment, or a hard Brexit. But at the end of the day, either way, I think business has to plan for either eventuality. I think probably leading up to the EU referendum, it was quite difficult or almost unbelievable to envisage that we would be in this position anyway and having this discussion, judging by general opinion from the business community. But at the end of the day, it's not just businesses who vote in referenda. It's the population. So there's a lot of emotion and a lot of more personal subjects come to the forefront.
So if we're talking about business, COPCO represents quite a number of businesses. How do they see what is happening in the UK right now?
So yes, you're right. Our membership are the British Chambers of Commerce across Europe, and they in turn represent approximately 8,000 businesses. The demographic of those businesses is quite interesting, and it's probably quite unique for a British business organisation that's based essentially in terms of its membership outside the UK. So their demographic tends to be probably about 50% the multinational global companies, and the rest would be the SMEs in each market. And leading up to the European Union referendum, obviously a lot of the individuals that are part of those businesses and the chambers themselves didn't actually have a vote in the UK, but as the friends of the UK and the clear common British thread as British Chambers outside, they clearly had a view, and it was very important for them to be able to express their view given the international trade activity that goes on between the members of those chambers and the UK, and the business activity, the international business community. And their view at the time was one of fear around uncertainty and what the outcome of that could be. And I don't believe that has changed at all. But what we are trying to do at COPCO is really to try and galvanise the wider business community across Europe to try and together perhaps influence the change and the outcome of what will happen in terms of trade negotiations, to ensure that influence, one, is from the bottom up in terms of business, so all businesses have a voice, at least the businesses that we represent within our communities, but also that whatever the outcome is, that it's good for Europe-wide business, not just the UK, because it's in everybody's interest that Europe remains strong, and it's in everybody's interest from a global economic point of view that Europe remains strong.
If we look at what the press says, recently the Foreign Secretary said that he would be going to India to look for opportunities there. What about Europe?
Well, interestingly enough, this whole strategy in terms of the export-led growth agenda for the UK for the last few years has focused on the emerging economies and the emerging markets across the world. And actually, the trade promotion activity moved away from Europe for a while now, particularly since the recession, for pretty obvious reasons. And we always felt quite strongly that there had been a huge gap left behind, and that we, as an obvious business organisation that has this network across Europe could fill some of that gap by really pushing the opportunities for international trade and investment, international business with Europe wide as a whole. And of course, let's not forget that there's Central and Eastern Europe, which, whilst you cannot refer to those markets as emerging economies, because they've emerged, let's face it, most of them are part of the European Union. Of course, there are still countries within the Balkans and Southeast Europe that still have a little way to go, but these are economies that are getting stronger and stronger. But there are the most extraordinary opportunities in that whole region for increased international trade and international investment in those markets as well.
And they're just very close as opposed to countries like India.
Exactly. I mean, I have quite a lot of experience in Romania, for example. I ran the British Romanian Chamber for many years, and I ran it during a period where it really was an emerging economy, and it was emerging, and I knew and understood the neighbourhood as well. And there were masses of opportunities, huge numbers of opportunities coming up, and I don't think that's really changed. And one of the big, I suppose, unique selling points for that region was the proximity of it, the fact that, British businesses could consider perhaps investing in those markets, and they would be able, for example, if they're manufacturing, if they have sort of manufacturing sites, they'd be able to move their goods in a much more inexpensive and much quicker way than if they're looking at India or China, for example.
Anne-Marie Martin, thank you very much.